She arrives at a family dinner expecting to be welcomed, but what she finds are judgmental stares, words that cut like knives, and a pain so deep that she questions whether God still cares about her life. Alone, in tears, she offers a weak prayer, almost without hope. And it is precisely in this moment of despair that a knock on the door changes everything. A stranger appears out of nowhere. But it's not by chance. It's an answer. What he says and does that night begins to rewrite a story of rejection into a testimony of love that you won't believe. Prepare your heart, because this story will show you how God works precisely when we think He is distant from us. Sarah was 32 years old, and this was supposed to be a special day. It was her older sister Rebecca's birthday, and the whole family had gathered at her parents' large house in Charleston, South Carolina. The house was beautiful, decorated with warm lights, the table laden with all that southern food that was a feast for the eyes. Outside, she could hear the laughter of children playing in the garden. Everything seemed perfect. But Sarah knew deep down that this night would be difficult. She arrived a little late, driving alone along the dusty road that led to the family property. She parked the old car, a 2008 Honda Civic that had seen better days, and stood there for a few minutes, just looking out the window. She took a deep breath. "You can do this," she murmured to herself. "It's just one night, a few hours, and you'll be gone." When she entered through the front door, she was greeted with those quick hugs and smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Her mother, Margaret, an elegant 60-year-old woman who always had that air of superiority, gave her a dry kiss on the cheek. "Sarah, darling, I'm so glad you were able to come," said her mother, but her tone made it clear that she had hoped Sarah wouldn't come. "Rebecca was worried you wouldn't show up again." Sarah swallowed hard. "I wouldn't miss her birthday, Mom." Of course," the mother replied, already turning to greet other guests. The house was full. Uncles, aunts, cousins, family friends. Everyone was well-dressed, talking about successful careers, international travel, their children who had gotten into prestigious universities. Sarah felt small in that environment. She was wearing a simple dress she had bought at a discount store, nothing compared to the expensive outfits she saw around her. She went to the kitchen to get something to drink and found Rebecca, her sister, surrounded by friends. Rebecca was everything Sarah wasn't. "I was 36 years old, married to a doctor, had 2 beautiful children, a huge house, and a well-established career as a lawyer." And, of course, he never let Sarah forget that. "Sarah?" Rebecca exclaimed with that fake enthusiasm. "You came. Girls, this is my little sister." Rebecca's friends looked Sarah up and down with that assessing gaze she knew so well. "Hi," Sarah said softly, trying to smile. "Sarah is still finding her way," Rebecca said, and her friends laughed politely. But Sarah felt the pang. She works at a coffee shop now. "But she's happy, right, Sarah?" "Yes, I am," Sarah replied, but her voice came out weaker than she would have liked. "I think it's wonderful that you don't care about status or money," one of her friends said, and Sarah didn't know if it was a compliment or an insult, probably both. The night went on, and each conversation seemed like a painful reminder of everything Sarah hadn't achieved. Her cousin Daniel, who was a businessman, asked about her career, and when she said she was serving coffee, he gave that condescending smile. "Ah, I understand. Everyone has their own timing, right? Some of us just take off faster than others." Her Aunt Helen, always direct and unfiltered, was even more cruel. "Sarah, darling, you're already 32 years old. When are you going to get a husband? Your sister already had 2 children at your age. The clock is ticking, you know." I'm not focused on that right now," Sarah tried to defend herself. "Yes, I imagine," the aunt replied, sipping her wine. "But you need to think about this. No man will want a woman without stability, without prospects. You need to get yourself organized, girl." Each word was like a punch to the gut. Sarah felt her chest tighten, her breathing becoming difficult. She looked around and saw everyone laughing, talking, enjoying the party. And there she was, in the middle of her own family, feeling like the loneliest person in the world. She went to the bathroom and locked the door. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes began to well up with tears. Why did I come? She thought. Why do I keep putting myself through this? She had faith in God. She always had. Since she was little, she went to church, prayed, and tried to live according to his teachings. But at that moment, alone in that bathroom, with the noise of the party outside, Sarah felt that God was very, very distant. "Where are you?" she whispered, looking at the ceiling. "Why do I have to go through this? What did I do wrong?" She returned to the party, trying to maintain her composure. She sat at the dinner table among people who barely spoke to her. She ate in silence while everyone around her shared stories of success and achievements. Her father, Robert, a 65-year-old man who had always been more occupied with business than with his daughters, made a toast. "To my daughter Rebecca," he said, raising his glass. "A woman who always knew what she wanted and went after it. A brilliant lawyer, an exemplary mother, a daughter who fills me with pride." Everyone applauded. Sarah applauded too, but felt tears welling up. Her father didn't even look in her direction. After the toast, Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She got up discreetly and went out to the back garden. She needed air. She needed to breathe. The night was cold in Charleston. The sky was full of stars, but Sarah could barely appreciate them. She leaned against the wooden fence and finally let the tears fall. "God, I'm tired," she said aloud, looking up at the sky. "I'm so tired of feeling like this, of being the black sheep, the daughter who didn't turn out right, the one everyone looks at with pity or contempt. I tried, I tried to do what was right. I studied, I worked, I prayed, but nothing is ever enough, and I don't know what to do anymore." She wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. "I just wanted to feel like I matter, that my life has value, that someone truly sees me, not as the daughter who failed, but as me, just me." The silence in the garden was deafening. No answer came, no sign, no comfort. Sarah felt even more alone. "Maybe I'm not important enough for you to care," she whispered, and that was the sentence that hurt the most to say, the idea that even God had forgotten her. She stayed there for a few more minutes, trying to compose herself. She couldn't go back inside with her face swollen from crying so much. She took several deep breaths, dried her face, and tried to smile at her reflection in the window. A weak, broken smile, but it was all she could manage. When she went back inside, the party was still going on. No one had noticed her absence. She discreetly grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Her mother intercepted her in the hallway. "Are you leaving already?" he asked, more out of obligation than genuine interest. "Yes, Mom. I have to work early tomorrow." "Ah, yes, the cafeteria," her mother said, and Sarah heard the judgment in those words. "Well, drive carefully. No hugs. No, stay a little longer." Just a nod, and Mom was already heading back to the party. Sarah left that house heartbroken. She got in her car and drove back to her small apartment on the other side of town. A simple, one-bedroom apartment, but it was all she could afford. All the way there, her family's words echoed in her head. "You're still searching for your way. No man will want you. A daughter who fills me with pride." Each sentence was a weight on her chest. She arrived home around midnight. The apartment was dark and cold. She didn't even bother to turn on all the lights. She went straight to the bedroom, took off her dress, put on comfortable clothes, and sat on the edge of the bed. There, in that absolute silence, Sarah felt the weight of everything collapsing around her. She put her face in her hands and cried. She cried like she hadn't cried in a long time. Deep sobs that came from deep inside, from a place of pain she had tried to ignore for years. "God," she began to pray, but she could barely form the words. "God, I don't know what to say. I don't know if you're listening to me. I don't know if you care. I feel so invisible, so useless, and I know I shouldn't feel this way. I know you say I have value, but I don't feel that. I only feel pain." She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. "Is there any purpose to my life? Or will I live like this forever, always being the one who isn't good enough? Please, show me that there's still hope. Please." The prayer was weak, powerless, almost devoid of faith. Sarah was at her breaking point. She had reached that point where you question everything, where hope seems like a pretty lie they tell you so you don't give up. She closed her eyes, emotionally exhausted, and it was precisely at that moment, when she believed she had hit rock bottom, that something happened. Tock, 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 a knock on the door. Sarah opened her eyes, startled. It was almost midnight. Who would be knocking on her door at this hour? She lived alone. She wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. Maybe it was some drunk neighbor who had gone to the wrong door. But the knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. More insistent this time. She got out of bed, her face still swollen from crying, and went to the door. She looked through the peephole and saw a man standing outside. Tall, probably around 35 years old, wearing a simple jacket and jeans. He was holding something in his hands. "Who is it?" Sarah asked, without opening the door. "Hi, sorry to bother you so late," the man replied, his voice calm and gentle. "My name is Nathan. I know this is going to sound strange, but I need to talk to you." Sarah frowned. "I don't know any Nathan. I think you've got the wrong apartment." "Apartment 3B. Sarah Mitchell?" he asked. Her heart raced. How did this stranger know her name and address? "Look, I know it sounds scary," Nathan continued. "But please, just give me a minute. I promise it will make sense." Logic told Sarah not to open that door. It was almost 1 a.m. She was alone. She didn't know this man. But something inside her, a quiet and persistent voice, told her to open it. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was faith. That weak faith she had just expressed in prayer. She unlocked the door and opened it just a crack, keeping the security chain in place. "What do you want?" he asked, trying to sound firm. Nathan looked at her with those brown eyes full of compassion. "I know you had a tough night. I know you're feeling alone, rejected, like nobody cares. And I came to tell you that you're not alone. And that someone cares very much." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. How do you know that? May I come in? It will be easier to explain," Nathan asked gently. Sarah hesitated. Everything about it was strange, surreal, but something about his presence wasn't threatening. It was comforting somehow. She removed the chain and opened the door. Nathan entered, and she could see that he was holding a white box in his hands. "I brought this for you," he said, handing over the box. "It's from Lou's Bakery, that bakery on Main Street. Apple pie. It's still warm." Sarah picked up the box, completely confused. I don't understand. Who are you? How do you know my name? Why are you here?" Nathan took a deep breath and smiled. "Is there a table where we can sit? This will take a few minutes." They sat down at the small kitchen table. Sarah placed the box containing the pie on the table, but didn't open it. She was tense, waiting for an explanation that made sense. "My name is Nathan Cole," he began. "I've lived here in Charleston for about 3 years. I work as a carpenter, doing woodworking and renovations, and, well, I also volunteer with a Christian organization that helps people going through difficult times." Sarah was still confused. "Okay, but that doesn't explain how you knew where I live or what happened to me today." "Let me tell you a story," Nathan said, leaning slightly forward. "This afternoon I was working on a renovation at a client's house. While I was sanding some doors in the back, I heard her talking on the phone in the living room. I didn't mean to listen, but voices travel, you know." Sarah nodded slowly. "She was talking to someone about the birthday party that was happening tonight, and she mentioned the name Sarah. She said something like, 'I hope Sarah doesn't come. She always makes everything uncomfortable with that pitiful look on her face.' And the other person on the other end of the line must have agreed because she laughed and said, 'Yeah, Rebecca deserves a perfect day without having to deal with her loser sister.'" Sarah's heart sank. "Did you hear my own family talking about me like that?" "I heard," Nathan confirmed, and there was genuine sadness in his eyes. "And Sarah, that broke my heart. Because I know what it's like to be judged, to be seen as someone who isn't good enough. I've been through that. But you don't know me," Sarah said, and felt the tears welling up again. Why would you care? Because God cares, Nathan said simply. And when you're connected to God, you care too. After I heard that conversation, I couldn't get you out of my head. I prayed about it for the rest of the day. I asked God what I should do, and I truly felt, that He wanted me to come here tonight. Sarah wiped away a tear that had rolled down her cheek. Are you saying that? That God sent you? I know it sounds crazy, Nathan said with a sad smile. Believe me, I questioned it too. Lord, am I going to a stranger's house at almost midnight? She's going to think I'm crazy? But the feeling wouldn't go away. And then I remembered a passage in Psalms that says God is near to those who have a broken heart. And I knew I needed to come. Sarah didn't know what to say. It was all so surreal, so unexpected. But at the same time, it made a strange and profound sense. How did you find my address? She asked. That was easier than you think, Nathan admitted. The client I was working for today is your Aunt Helen. She has that family diary on her living room table. I took a peek when she wasn't looking. I found your address there. Sarah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My Aunt Helen, the same one who spent the whole night telling me that no man would ever want me. The same, Nathan confirmed. And I can tell you, from what I've observed working at her house this week, she's not exactly the happiest or most fulfilled person. Hurt people, Sarah. It's not an excuse, but it's a reality. Sarah looked at the box containing the pie on the table. Why did you bring pie? Nathan smiled. Because when you're heartbroken, sometimes you need something sweet to remind you that not everything in life is bitter. And because I wanted you to know that someone cares enough to bring you pie in the middle of the night. And it was at that moment that Sarah broke down, all those pent-up emotions, all that pain. It all came to the surface. She started to cry, but this time it wasn't just pain. It was also relief. Relief at being seen, at being heard, at being important to someone. Nathan said nothing. He just stood there, quiet, giving her space to feel what she needed to feel. After a few minutes, Sarah managed to recover a little. Sorry, she said, wiping her face with her sleeve. You don't need to apologize for having feelings, Nathan said gently. Never. I prayed tonight, Sarah confessed, her voice still trembling. I prayed asking God to show me that my life has purpose, that I'm not invisible, and then you appear, out of nowhere, saying that God sent you. Is this real? Yes, it is, Nathan assured her. Look, Sarah, I don't know all the details of what you're going through. I don't know the whole story, but I know that God sees you. He hears your prayers, even those we make with a broken voice and weak faith. In fact, I think those are the prayers He values most, because they are the most honest. Sarah looked at him, that stranger who had appeared at her door, and for the first time in a long time, felt a spark of hope. What do I do now? She asked. I feel so lost. You don't need to have all the answers right now, Nathan replied. But I can tell you one thing. You're not alone. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to be your friend. Someone you can call when things get tough. Someone who will remind you of your worth when you forget, but you don't even know me. Sarah repeated. So let's get to know each other, Nathan said with a genuine smile. Because I believe God puts people in our path for a reason. And I think you and I are connected in a way that we don't fully understand yet. But that will make sense in time. Sarah looked at the box containing the pie, and for the first time that night, managed a genuine smile. Want a piece? She offered. I'd love to, Nathan agreed. And there, in that small kitchen, at almost 2 a.m, two strangers shared apple pie and began a conversation that would change both of their lives forever. They talked for hours. Nathan told his own story, about how he had grown up in a dysfunctional family, about how he had been lost in the world for years until he found God. Sarah shared about her frustrated dreams, about the constant pressure from her family, about how she felt trapped in a life that wasn't what she had imagined. And as the night wore on, something beautiful began to form between them, a genuine connection, a friendship based on vulnerability and honesty. When Nathan finally said goodbye, It was almost 4 in the morning. Sarah walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said, and the words carried the weight of everything that had happened. "For coming. For caring. You can call me whenever you need to," Nathan said, handing over a card with his number. "Really? No matter the time, I'll answer." Sarah took the card and smiled. "I'll keep this." After he left, Sarah closed the door and leaned against it. She looked at the card in her hand and then up at the ceiling. "You sent him, didn't you?" she whispered. "You heard my prayer." And for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt that God was not distant. He was right there, very close, working in mysterious and perfect ways. The following days were different. Sarah woke up with a feeling she had forgotten existed. Hope. Nathan kept his promise and called the next day, just to see how she was doing. They arranged to have coffee together on the weekend. That coffee break turned into walks in the park. The walks turned into simple dinners. And as the weeks went by, that initial friendship began to transform into something deeper. Nathan was not like the other men Sarah had known. He wasn't impressed by status or appearances. He saw her, the real Sarah, the woman with a kind heart, wavering but persistent faith, wounded but still alive dreams. They talked about everything, about faith, about fears, about hopes. Nathan had a way of making Sarah feel safe enough to be vulnerable. And for the first time in her life, she felt she didn't need to wear masks. 3 months after that night, Nathan showed up at her door. He took her to the pier in Charleston. It was a Saturday afternoon, the sun beginning to set, painting the sky orange and purple. "Sarah," Nathan began, holding her hand as they walked. "Do you remember that first night when I showed up at your door?" "How could I forget?" Sarah replied with a smile. "I still find it surreal." "I told you that God had sent me," Nathan continued. "And at the time, I thought it was just to comfort you, to remind you that you weren't alone. But now I realize it was much more than that." He stopped walking and turned to face her. The wind ruffled his hair, and there was something in his eyes that made Sarah's heart race. "I think God didn't just send me to be your friend," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I think he sent me because you're the person I've been looking for my whole life, the person he prepared for me. And I fell in love with you, Sarah." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. "Nathan, I know it's fast," he continued, "and I don't want to pressure you, but I needed to tell you. Because every day I spend with you, I see God's marks on your life. I see a strong woman, even when she doesn't feel strong. A woman of faith, even when that faith wavers. And I want to walk beside you, not just for a few months, but for a lifetime." Sarah cried, but they were good tears. Tears of someone who received something they didn't even know they could have. "I fell in love with you too," she confessed. "And it's scary, because I never felt worthy of a love like this. But you make me believe that maybe God really does have something good in store for me." "He does, Sarah. He always has," Nathan said, pulling her into a hug. "Your family's rejection doesn't define your worth. Harsh words don't define who you are. God had already written this story before you even prayed that night. He was just waiting for the right moment." They stayed there, embraced, while the sun completely set. And at that moment, Sarah understood something profound. Sometimes, God allows us to reach rock bottom, not because He doesn't care, but because it is there in that place of complete surrender that we are ready to receive what He has prepared. If she hadn't gone to that party, if she hadn't felt that deep pain, if she hadn't prayed that weak, almost hopeless prayer, Nathan wouldn't have appeared. That love wouldn't have been born. God used her family's rejection as the perfect setting for a story of redemption. 6 months later, Nathan proposed to Sarah. It was simple. In the church they had started attending together. Right after a service, he knelt down right there on the church pew and asked if she wanted to build a life with him, a life founded on God's principles and purposes. Sarah said yes, and when she said yes, it wasn't just to him. It was also a yes to God, a yes to faith, a yes to the idea that she was worthy of love. Their wedding was small, but full of meaning. A few close friends, people from church, people who truly cared. Sarah invited her family, of course, but not because she needed their approval. She invited them because she had forgiven, because she had understood that wounded people wound others, and that she didn't need to carry that burden. Her mother went, but didn't stay long. Rebecca sent a gift, but didn't show up. Her father offered his congratulations somewhat awkwardly, as if he still couldn't understand how his failed daughter had found someone. But Sarah didn't care, because she had learned something fundamental. Family opinion didn't determine her worth. God's love did. Nathan and Sarah built a beautiful life together. It wasn't perfect, of course. They had challenges, bills to pay, difficult times, but they faced everything together, always returning to the foundation of faith that had united them. Sarah never forgot that night. The night she felt God was too distant. The night she prayed a weak prayer. The night the knock on the door changed everything. Years later, when she and Nathan had their first child, a beautiful baby girl they named Grace, Sarah held the baby in her arms and wept tears of gratitude. "Do you see this?" she said to Nathan, who was beside her in the hospital. "Do you see how God writes stories?" "I see," Nathan replied, kissing her forehead. "He takes our greatest pain and transforms it into our greatest blessing." Sarah looked at her daughter sleeping in her arms and thought about the woman she had been on that fateful night. Broken, rejected, feeling invisible. And then she looked at the woman she had become. Loved, valued, a mother, a wife, a daughter of God. The rejection from her family still hurt sometimes. There were times when she longed for her parents' approval, her sister's pride, but she had learned that we don't need everyone's validation. We only need God's validation. And when we have that, when we truly understand how much He loves us, the opinions of others lose their power to destroy us. One day, Sarah was in the kitchen of the house she and Nathan had bought, preparing dinner. It was a simple house, but full of love. And while she was chopping vegetables, she heard that gentle voice in her heart, that voice she had learned to recognize as God's. "Do you remember when you thought I was too distant?" the voice seemed to say. Sarah stopped what she was doing and smiled, tears welling in her eyes. "I remember," she whispered. "I was never distant. I was preparing something much bigger than you could imagine. I was writing a love story, not just between you and Nathan, but between me and you, because you needed to learn that when people fail, I remain faithful." Sarah wiped away her tears and looked out the kitchen window. Nathan was outside in the garden, playing with little Grace, who was now 3 years old. They were both laughing, and the sound of their laughter was living proof that God answers prayers. Sometimes we think God isn't listening because the answer doesn't come the way we expect or when we expect it. But He always listens, and He always answers. In His time, in His way, and always, always. Better than we could imagine. That night of rejection, Sarah had reached her breaking point. She had offered a weak, almost hopeless prayer. But it was precisely that prayer that God was waiting for, because it was in that moment of total surrender, of complete vulnerability, that she was ready to receive the answer He had already prepared. Nathan was no accident. The knock on the door was no coincidence. It was God saying, "I see you, I hear you, and I have something far better than you can imagine." Today, Sarah and Nathan use their story to encourage others who are experiencing rejection. They open their home for small Bible study groups. They share their testimony at church. They remind people that when we hit rock bottom, it's not the end. It's just God preparing the ground to build something new and beautiful. And every time Sarah tells the story of that night, the night of the party, the night of the rejection, the night of the weak prayer, the night of the knock on the door, she ends with a sentence that sums it all up. When you think God is too distant, remember, He never is. He's just preparing something so big that you're not yet strong enough to handle it. But when the time comes, when you've completely surrendered, He will send the answer, and you will look back and understand that every tear, every pain, every moment of rejection was preparing you for something greater, because God doesn't waste anything, not even our pain. And this, my friends, is the truth that Sarah learned. a truth that she lives every day, a truth that changed not only her life, but the lives of everyone who hears her story. Because in the end, her family's rejection didn't define her destiny. God's faithfulness did. And when we understand that, when we truly understand that God is always working, even when we don't see it, everything changes. Sarah is no longer the broken woman from that party. She is the woman God always knew she would be. Strong, loved, valuable, whole. And it all started with a knock on the door. A collision that was no accident. A beat that came from God. Sarah discovered that night something we all need to learn. When we feel most alone, God is closest. He sees every tear, hears every weak prayer, and works behind the scenes preparing answers that go far beyond what we can imagine. Her family's rejection wasn't the end of the story. It was just the chapter God used to write something beautiful. Because when people fail, He remains faithful. And in His time, He always sends the exact help at the exact moment. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, comment what you thought, and subscribe to keep hearing stories like this. Stories that remind us that we are never alone, just like this one I'm sharing with you.